Good morning. Calling the Municipal Services and Properties Committee to order. Today is Monday, May 20th, 2024. Madam Secretary, can you call the roll?
Bishop.
Here.
Starr.
Present.
Hairston. Jones. Casey.
Present.
Kelly.
Present.
Moore.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First, we're going to hear.
He's on the elevator now, so we can come on up here and get going with that works.
Is he here? Come on.
We do have a presentation, I believe, as well.
I'm just here for the handoff.
All right, we're going to get started with ordinance number 407, 2024. By Council Members Polensek, Bishop, and Griffin. This is a departmental request. And this is an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the Commissioner of Purchasing and Supplies to sell certain city-owned property no longer needed for a city's public use located at the southeast corner of Grovewood Avenue and East 164th Street to Greater Cleveland Habitat for Humanity, Inc., or its designee for the purpose of future development. Okay, who wants to start us off? Director?
Yeah, good morning, committee, council. I have here Commissioner DeGennaro from MOCAP. She's actually going to take it from here. I'm just going to give the handoff and let her go from there.
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Greater Cleveland Habitat for Humanity wishes to purchase a 1.7-acre site. It's the former Grovewood Pool site located at the corner of East 164th Street and Grovewood Avenue to construct 10 single-family modular homes to be sold through their zero-interest affordable home ownership program. The land will be sold at a appraised value of $65,000. The site is surrounded by residential, and so construction of the additional 10 new houses will help to kind of knit the area together. The pool was relocated at Collinwood Rec Center. It's now open year-round because it's indoors, and Humphrey Park is across the street, and it provides over 25 acres of improved green space with park improvements. Councilman Polensek is in support of the sale, and I do have with me this morning Bob Whitney, the Director of Government Affairs from Habitat, and Joseph Gabbard, Chief Strategy Officer, who can tell you a little bit more about the details of the project. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Bob, you want to comment?
Absolutely, thank you, Chair. This is, my name again is Bob Whitney. I'm the Director of Government Affairs with Greater Cleveland Habitat. First of all, I want to thank Council for all the support they've given us. I know we have a lot of folks we've worked with on many projects, so appreciate the opportunity to be here, as well as to thank Commissioner DeGennaro and MOCAP for their work on this. But yeah, to keep it short and sweet, you can see a presentation right here. We are going to be building 10 new homes on this site is what we aim to do. We have been talking with Councilman Polensek about this land for some time. He directed us to this land as it's just been vacant for quite a few years, and he thinks it's a great opportunity for single family. As Commissioner said, it is zoned for residential, so we've been in great conversations with him for some time to be able to move forward, and he also heavily encouraged us to explore modular homes, and so we've had many conversations with both a modular home builder and a general contractor who is going to be assisting us with the building of this, and we know that Councilman Polensek, as he has stated, there's not enough affordable housing in the city. There's certainly not enough affordable housing in the Collinwood area, and so he's encouraging us to move forward. You can go to the next slide, please.
All right, before we go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So these homes along this street right here, what is that, 164th Street? So that's the home itself, and then in that square in the back is the garage, correct?
1.5 car garage, correct.
Okay, and then that's on another street, the 3 other homes, and then the 3 garages in the back?
Correct.
Okay. Now, can you briefly explain to the committee the difference between a modular home and something that you would traditionally build?
Yes, and Joseph, please feel free to add as well. Modular homes are created ahead of time in a factory. The company we're working with, Champion, has been around for over 60 years, so they know what they're doing and have been able to build these homes successfully. They also have built 5 other homes, at least, in the city of Cleveland on Fenwick Avenue. We're working with a general contractor by the name of Gene Mulligan, who built those homes on Fenwick. So these homes are made pre-built in a factory ahead of time in a controlled environment, so you can have the top-notch construction there. You don't have to worry about weather and things like that that can regularly happen and regularly, be a hindrance to construction in Cleveland. Ahead of time, you still have to do site work. We'll still be doing excavation for these homes ahead of time. We'll still be doing utility connections. But what it does is it creates a much faster process so that homes can get to families quicker. And we really did this as a response to the need for us to increase and have more productivity in light of the lack of housing that we have currently in this city. Joseph, do you want to add any more details?
Yes, to the chair, what I would say is, once a modular home is completed, you would not know it's a modular home or a stick build unless you were there when the cranes lifted the modules onto the slab or the foundation. There's really there are minor differences, but for all intents and purposes, it's a stick-built home, but done off-site and then brought to site.
Okay, so I get that this will save time as far as the build time.
Correct.
Will it save cost?
So based on these homes now, we don't believe it's going to be a huge or significant cost savings. We are working with a general contractor as well, which of course factors that in there. So unfortunately for us, no, we don't think that it's going to be a huge cost savings on this project. Budgets are similar to what we do with our traditional stick-built and volunteers, but our main goal here is time to be able to do this as quickly as possible. And with our growth as an organization, we're seeking out other opportunities and new ways to innovate. We have our, traditional volunteer builds. We have our traditional staff builds. We're absolutely going to be continuing to do and really grow on those as well. But this is about saving time, and this is about doing more work for folks.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, Councilman Starr, you have a point?
Yes, I have a point. As I look at the executive summary through the chair, I see it says a price tag of $65,000. Through the chair, can we explain what that $65,000 cost? Is that for each home, or $65,000 for the price to purchase all of this land? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, that is the price for Habitat to purchase the vacant land.
Okay, and then once they purchase the vacant land, through the chair, these homes each one of these 10 homes will sell around what price range?
To the councilman through the chair, we have an estimated post-built appraisal at $173,000.
100. And are we calling these affordable homes through the chair?
To the councilman through the chair, with Habitat 0% interest mortgage on a 25-year note, the principal due to Habitat would be roughly $567 if we divide that out. With homeowners insurance, we estimate about $100, and with tax abatement, another $10. So the all-in monthly payment would be less than $700 a month.
Okay, through the chair, is there a way for us to receive some of that information regarding this, possibly? Because if it's saying it's $700, and I believe if it's not in writing, it don't exist. Because when you think about the Northeast, when you think about all of Cleveland, we have to find a way to have that balance so people can afford these homes. And I would definitely love to see, do the breakdown. Do you have any down payment assistance, any how you subsidizing these properties? Those type of things I would love to look at. And I know Councilman Polensik Dean is in support of this, but I know he also look at ways to make affordable homes in his neighborhood. So those are just some things I would love to see. Chair.
Yeah. Through the chair to the councilman, not a problem. I have a work up here. Once we get back to the office, I can send you the breakdown so you can see the payment and the affordability levels. I will note at 0% interest, that's the key that keeps these homes affordable through the Habitat model. And us as the bank, there's no bank providing cash or a mortgage to these. We are much more compassionate, I would say, than a traditional lender. So we fit every mortgage payment to every household's unique needs to ensure sustainability so they can stay in the home.
All right, and
Comfortably.
my last question, Chair. So Alpha Appraisal Group is the group who is going to make the modular homes?
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, that is the appraisal firm that Habitat engaged to do an appraisal of the vacant land so that we know how much the property should transfer for. So that's the fair market value of the vacant land. And again, that appraiser was selected from a pre-approved list that we have in the Division of Real Estate.
So through the chair, who will be the ones making these modular homes? I asked that question because last year for National League of Cities, when we traveled there, we had got a chance to look at modular homes. And I think we were in Atlanta. I'm trying to figure out which company will be the ones making the homes.
To the councilman through the chair, we are working with Champion, who is one of the largest, if not the largest, modular home builder in the country. They've been around for over 60 years, so they have a great reputation. They also did complete the 5 homes on Fenwick Avenue that were built in the last few years in the city of Cleveland. We are also working with a general contractor by the name of Gene Mulligan. He works for the company Community Rebuilders LLC, who is also responsible for the homes on Fenwick, also built those as well. So he's familiar with the city processes. We decided as an organization for our first venture into modular that we really wanted to work with folks that had great experience, that knew how to do these, that had done these before. So we thought that that was the best option for us going forward, to work with folks that had those experience and had a proven product in order to be successful.
All right, and through the chair, those 5 homes that you built on Fenwood is in what ward?
Through the chair to the council member, we did not actually build those homes on Fenwick. I apologize for not specifying that. Those were built by another builder. I believe Gene handled that himself through Community Rebuilders LLC. So that was not our project. The reason I bring it up is to emphasize that our general contractor and Champion, the builder, has built in Cleveland before. We decided to work with people that had been successful in Cleveland. However, we did not do that project specifically.
Yeah, you didn't do that project specifically. What ward is that in? Do anybody that's in Councilwoman Santana? And how long ago do we think that was built? Were they built through the chair? I know you mentioned it.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I believe that project started in 2019 is when they started the first few, and it's, I believe they had wrapped up the final unit last year, I believe, but the project started in 2019.
Okay, I just want to ask because I'm going to reach out to Councilwoman Santana just to see how the experience is. The home's been up for 5 years. Obviously, modular homes are something new and more modern. So just getting to understand any type of feedback from the Councilwoman, whether her office heard something or from the residents about the homes. So those are all the questions I have, Chair.
Yeah, I was going to say, through the chair to the councilman, also, I believe at that time, your colleague Chris Harsh, Councilman Harsh, was heavily involved with that, so he would also be a good source of information, and he did provide a recommendation of the quality of work and kind of attested to Community Rebuilders doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. You want to please continue?
Yes, we can certainly continue forward with the next slide, please. Oh. And so, yes, this is a rendering of the modular homes, 3D renderings that were provided from Champion as well as Community Rebuilders LLC. As my colleague mentioned, you really can't see a difference between these and traditional stick-built homes. Based on the support that we received from City Council through ARPA funds, aging in place was certainly a priority, so we wanted to move forward, and we are doing this in multiple wards where we will be doing ranches. As I will show as well, these houses have full basements, and there's a variety of different things with both the outside of the homes to make sure that these homes are unique and look great in the neighborhood that they're in, and we've had extensive discussions with City Planning Commission, as well as talk with Building and Housing about this as well. These are some more data. These are 2D renderings. There will be 10 homes total, aging in place, as I mentioned, 1,351 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1.5-car garage, energy-efficient heating and AC, as well as a full basement. Again, we think these will be great homes. And then finally, I believe I have one more slide. Is it going? There we are. Aging in place design. Again, this was a big priority for us with everything going on in the city as far as having more different opportunities for people to age in place. You can see the floor plan there. Again, the 3-bed, the 2-bath, and we will have a basement as well. And that is really all it's going to be down there is the hot water tank and the furnace. Laundry, everything like that is going to be fully accessible upstairs so that folks can age in place in these homes. And again, these were from extensive conversations with Councilman Polensek. I should also mention we're building similar homes in both Councilman Kelly and also Councilwoman Spencer's wards as well. So we had great conversations with them as well through the process to make sure that we were factoring in a lot of different things. Councilwoman Spencer really emphasized aging in place aspect as well. So that's a high-level overview, but happy to answer additional questions.
All right, thank you. All right, open it up to questions. Any questions? Councilman Kelly.
Hey, thanks for being here, folks. Maybe you can just explain real quick to the public out there, just how somebody can purchase these homes. You have a process through Habitat for Humanity, please.
Absolutely, to the councilman through the chair. So when people apply for Habitat homes, they don't apply for a specific home. They apply to the program as a whole. As my colleague has mentioned, the program, we sell homes at a 0% interest mortgage to qualified families. These are families making between 30 and 80% of the area median income. For a family of 4, for context, that's folks making between $28,000 and $75,000 at this current time. There's a lot of folks that meet those requirements within the greater Cleveland area. So they apply for the home. Usually, it's a process of 30 to 90 days to know whether or not they're accepted into the Habitat for Humanity program. And then the big part about Habitat is they actually put in a lot of sweat equity before they can purchase a home. It's at least 200 hours. So they're working hard and getting training on home maintenance, actually working on the construction of the homes in some cases. They're also getting financial education, home safety. It's a whole training program that usually takes close to 12 months before somebody's actually moved into a home. But after if they are accepted in the program, then they do their first 50 volunteer hours. Once they hit that 50th volunteer hour, then they're able to choose from the homes we have available. So we're always careful to note with folks that we can't guarantee they could ever get a specific home, but they are able to apply for a home and then pick from that process. And we're meant to work with folks that wouldn't traditionally be able to get a mortgage. We have certain qualifications. We don't look at just a credit score, but we look at their credit history to make sure they're paying things on time. But there's a whole lot of families throughout the greater Cleveland area that, have income, are making money, are able to reliably pay their rent, but don't have the opportunity to purchase a home and are priced out of that wealth building opportunity. So we're here for those families to give them a chance so that they can build wealth and have some potentially to pass on their kids in the future. So a little long-winded, but through the chair, I hope that answers your question, Councilman.
Through the chair, thank you, folks.
All right, thank you, Councilman Kelly. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking Bob and Habitat for Humanity. Over the weekend, we just did a ribbon cutting on 5 new homes over on West 128th and between the Bridges neighborhood, which is going to transform that neighborhood over there. And one of the good, cool things about working with Habitat for Humanity is when this project came to Ward 16, it was a little difficult sell to the neighborhood because the neighborhood just believed that it was going to be more rentals, right? But the good thing about Habitat for Humanity is this is a program that helps stabilize neighborhoods because you're moving homeowners, people who have invested into the project already, and a lot of times it's their first homes. It's their first time that they get to buy a home. So not only do they take pride in having their own home, it eventually helps them wealth build. right? And I've told the story before, I have a sister-in-law who, just paid off her Habitat home. 25 years ago, I remember having to put in volunteer hours to help her get a home. And I looking at it now, she's got wealth built up, in that home, and it was the beginning of her becoming successful. So I want to thank Habitat. You guys are one of the few ones around town who, aren't in it for the big dollars in rehabs and stuff, and you guys really are concerned about putting people in homes and helping stabilize people and building neighborhoods. So I appreciate Habitat for that. Mr. Chairman, to the director, though, I want to ask about the property, right? Knowing what we're going through in a different part of town, having given up some property, I want to assure that this property, that nobody's going to come back in 2 or 3 years or in the middle of a project stating that there was another use for this land, that it should have been, it was promised for something else, that, I just want to make sure that there's nothing that's going to come back. This is a big piece, this is a big chunk of property. And I just want to make sure that nothing's going to come back later on, to bite either the local council person or the council in general or your office, because this wasn't what this property was intended for. So I just want to make sure, I want to hear from the director, or from the chair to the director, that we're good with selling this property off.
Understood. Through the chair to Councilman Casey, there are no deed restrictions on the property. It was a pool site. The pool was relocated to Collinwood Brack, so it's now indoors and can be open
Right.
year-round to serve the community. Unfortunately, the pool just fell into disrepair and was not salvageable. I think, the fact that there's so much green space to the north in Humphrey Park that's improved and is higher quality, that helps to make up for the fact that this property is going to be used for residential. I think another key point is that, you have Humphrey Park and, Grovewood Avenue runs through there. You really don't want children running across the street to get to another portion of the park. It's so, from a safety perspective, I think this is a good move. And yeah, it's kind of quality over quantity. There's so much improved green space to the north that I think it makes sense, in this situation. It's not a one-for-one trade. It's actually a one-for-more, because of the improved green space to the north.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, can you just tell us how long the city has had that property and how we came about obtaining it?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Casey. It was acquired in, I believe, 1943, and it was purchased for park use, but again, with no deed restriction.
Okay, but it was, Mr. Chairman, to the director, it was purchased for a park use. It's just no longer, and it's been with the city since 1948.
That's correct, and it was purchased for park use. It was used for park use, had it been appropriated, which it wasn't, but had it been, if it hadn't been used for that purpose, we would have had to have offered it back to the individual who sold it to us, but that's not the case here. So we have the ability to go ahead and sell it.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, to the director, what we're hearing is that the individual who originally sold us the property, right, is not also going to have, when he sold it to us, it wasn't for park purpose, or you don't foresee an issue with anybody coming back later on the city and saying, no, this was sold to you for park property, it needs to maintain park property?
Through the chair to the councilman, I do not.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. Is there any other questions? Councilman Anthony Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilman Casey, for asking that question, because I was going to ask the same thing, because I know this administration has been taking very straightforward positions on not using parkland for private development. So I'm curious, I'm interested, I was particularly interested when I saw this piece appear on the agenda, right? And so you're telling us that there is no restrictions this will not come back to bite us should this move forward and allow for the development of this particular site where the pool once set years ago?
Through the chair to Councilman Hairston, yes, that's correct. When the property was purchased, the owner certainly had the option to place a restriction in the deed that would state that it was to be used for park purposes in perpetuity, but opted not to do that. So there is no restriction in place that would prohibit the sale of this property.
Got it. You said who opted not to do that? Through the chair?
So the owner of the property could have placed a restriction in
Could
the
have.
deed.
Okay.
Could have, yes. They certainly could have opted to do that, but in this case, they did not.
Okay. But it's been the city's policy to use this, well, not the policy, but this has been the city's, plan over the years to use and keep this as park land, correct?
That is correct. Up until recently, when the pool, fell into disrepair and needed to be, it was made more sense to relocate it to Collinwood Rec than to try and salvage it on the site that it was on.
Sure. Through the chair, what's recently? This pool has been closed since I was a kid.
Yeah, so I think the pool at Collinwood Rec was built maybe within the last 10 years. I believe it was 2013 that this site was. It was closed, but it was actually filled in about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think that this pool has been closed longer than 10 years and filled in. This has been
I'm sorry.
closed.
I'll clarify through the chair to the councilman. The pool was closed for a period of years, and
Long time.
then within the last 10 years, it was filled in.
Got you. The reason I asked the question because you're saying that they closed this and then opened Collinwood Rec pool. Those timelines are completely off with each other, right? I'm living in this neighborhood, so and grew up in Collinwood. So the reason that you have Collinwood Rec pool is not because of this particular pool, this little piece of park closing. Councilman Polensek, Councilman Coates had worked on getting a rec for Collinwood neighborhood for many years, right? And ultimately, it went over on Lakeshore, right? There's other pools that had closed in South Collinwood, which is not the reason you have Collinwood Rec, right? The two council members have for years worked to get a rec center built in Collinwood because Collinwood did not have any recreation facility at all. The stadium happened, and then you had the rec center that happened, one in South, one in North part of Collinwood, which again to me is all Collinwood. But I just don't want folks listening to think that is the reason that you have a new rec center is because this particular pool closed. This happened well in advance of the other facility happening. In fact, that facility those two gentlemen were working for many years to make that happen. So again, I mean that's nor here nor there, but I just wanted to make sure that there was no deed restrictions, there was no issues that's going to come back of us selling this land like we've been hearing on Monday nights, with issues that we sold or gave away because it was so-called surplus land, right? And then turns out that's not the case, that folks really wanted that to happen over the neighborhood. So we'll take your word for it, but, again, just making sure that we're clear on those points. And through the chair, how many homes are being built here?
To the councilman through the chair, 10 homes.
10 homes on this site?
Yep. We've gone through extensive conversations with surveyors to lay this out and to make sure we get this in the right way. 10 total homes, 1,351 square feet ranches with basements as well, and then 1.5-car garages. We recognize these would be pretty big yards, but this is what made the most sense based on the frontage of the land. We always want to get as much in there as we can, but this was through intensive conversations with surveys and engineers that we've been having in our partnership with Councilman Polensek since last year.
Gotcha. It just doesn't seem that big when you drive the neighborhood. I'm always down Grovewood, right? And it just doesn't seem that big to put 10 homes on. I mean, that seems to be really, really, really tight.
To the council, yeah, councilman through the chair, I believe overall our yard space is going to be for these on average quite a bit bigger than most of the homes that we've actually done. I believe the frontages on these are 40 feet, which is standard for us. Mostly all, I would say majority of the homes we do are 40. So I can say working, sometimes things there's more space than what meets the eye sometimes when you do these. So again, we look to try to get as many as possible, and we're happy it was able to work out.
That's good. Okay, sounds good. It just, again, when you drive the site, like you said, it doesn't seem that large for 10 homes. I'm like, what? 10 homes. And I saw it on the presentation, but I wanted to be clear. What I was reading was the actual case. All right, no further questions, Councilman. Thank you. Chairman, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harrison. Is there any other questions on ordinance 407, 2024? And we do have the support of Councilman Polensek, I'm pretty sure, right? All right.
Yes, indeed.
Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 407, 2024 is approved. Please sign. All right. Director, you have 2 more pieces, correct? All right. All right, let's move over to the rest of your pieces. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Ordinance number 405, 2024.
Can we do 404?
404. All right, check that. Ordinance number 404, 2024, by Councilmember Bishop and Griffin. This is also a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into a license agreement with the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Greater Cleveland, Inc., doing business as Destination Cleveland or its designee, to install and maintain graphic art on city-owned property at 205 West St. Clair Avenue for a period of 5 years, automatically renewing from year to year. Okay, Director.
Thank you. Again, I want to hand this over to Commissioner DeGennaro. That's why I wanted to try to move with this piece to get her out.
Thank you, Director. Mr. Chairman, we may have a guest from Destination Cleveland. So we have Alex
Harnotes, yes.
Harnotes, who will speak to you a little bit about the details of the artwork that is to be installed. So Destination Cleveland is on a mission to install vinyl wrap, artwork, wayfinding, and graphics in downtown Cleveland as a way to create connections and improve the pedestrian experience for residents, businesses, and visitors to downtown. As part of this initiative, Destination Cleveland identified the West 2nd Alley area as an area that would be suitable for installation of this artwork. So the artwork would be installed on the alley itself and also on a building that's owned by the City of Cleveland, 205 St. Clair. The building will have vinyl shrink wrap graphics installed. There's a heat process that is used to install them onto the building. It's a masonry building. It will not be affected by the installation of the graphics, and then and that will be done subject to a license agreement to be issued by the Director of Public Works. It will be for a period. The license agreement will renew from year to year for up to 5 years, and Destination Cleveland will be responsible for restoring the property to how it was when, prior to when the artwork was installed. And then as part of this project, but not subject to the license agreement, Destination Cleveland will install non-slip paint on the alley. And Alex can talk to you a little bit more about the details of the artwork and the thought behind what's being installed. And we do have a presentation with some images as well. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
Make sure you use the microphone.
So this was designed by a graphics firm, ThunderTech, local graphics firm, following some of our brand guidelines. This is not the latest rendering. So, do we not go with the one that was sent?
To the chairman, we did send an updated presentation this morning. It may not have made it onto the slideshow here, but I believe I have, yes, I do have a
Okay.
a
Yeah,
drawing.
so we can
It's-
pass that down. They're very much similar, but there were some important updates made to the design based on the feedback of Design Review and Planning Commission. So the biggest difference you'll note is that we've taken the paint on the alley off of the entire length, as you see on the screen, and in the printout, you'll see that it just sort of spills out of the corner of the 205 West St. Clair building onto sort of that intersection of the two alleys there. This is sort of an abstract work. It's really just intended to bring activity and something to draw the eye down this corridor. So with the construction of the new Sherwin-Williams building, with the renovations to Public Square, and with the front door of the convention center moving from Lakeside to St. Clair, we think that this can be an important pedestrian connection between the convention center, Public Square, all the transit that's available on Public Square and at Terminal Tower. But at the moment, it's not a particularly welcoming walk down that narrow West Second Alley. And so, as was presented, this is a vinyl wrap. We've used this product in one other project so far. It's extensively used in other cities. The contractor that we're working with has done multiple projects in Lakewood and in the city of Kent for both the university and the city. And we're confident in his ability to do this sort of at large scale. It's a vinyl product that's heated and shrinks onto the masonry, and it can be heated and removed in the same way. So at the end of the term, it can be removed without damaging the building. If for some reason one of the vinyl panels is defaced or damaged, by vehicles going up and down the alley, that panel can be removed and replaced without affecting the entire work. So we think it's a nice flexible product for a pretty high traffic location here.
Okay. All right. How big are the panels? You mentioned panels, correct? How big are the panels? Can you give us a sense of?
Yeah, so they're probably 4 to 5 feet wide, and I don't know how long they print them, long enough to be able to handle. So they're vinyl, as you'd see in like a window cling, but the backing is different in order to achieve that heat shrink property. So in this instance, they would be they'd be printed on a plotter, the white spaces would be cut out, and then they'd be taken up on a lift and hung with the shrink wrap process.
Okay. And this is city-owned property, correct?
Yes, this 205 West St. Clair building is owned by the city.
Oh, it's owned by the city. Okay. And now, who pays the cost of this installation of this art? Who's going to pick up the cost?
Yes, this is fully funded by Destination Cleveland.
Destination Cleveland. Okay. All right. First, I'm going to go to Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to Alex, I'll just call you Alex.
That's fine.
How many of these type of projects does Destination Cleveland have around the whole city?
Yes, to the councilman through the chair, we're in the process of completing our 5th mural. Those were painted murals, and working on a 6th in the Lee Harvard neighborhood right now. That would complete that series of 6 that we laid out about a year and a half ago. Those applications, we worked with local artists. Those are actual paint-on-building murals. This is, a little bit different, just being a digital design printed with the vinyl. We did one of these vinyl applications as a sort of a pilot or a test for this project at East 9th and Bolivar, the hot dog that's across the street from the ballpark. Much smaller scale, but that was a bit of a test run for something like this.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Alex, do you plan on, aside from downtown, because Destination Cleveland is not just Destination Downtown Cleveland, right?
Indeed.
So do you plan on taking these projects more citywide?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, right now, the neighborhood projects that we've got on the slate and in the budget are the murals that we're finishing up right now. I think it's in Destination Cleveland's interest and our board and our leadership to get public art out into both the neighborhoods and to downtown. I'm certain that this isn't the last thing that you'll see from us, but I can't promise anything that's, like I said, on the slate right now other than the murals across the city.
All right, and then, Mr. Chairman, to Alex, the murals that are across the city, they're all the ones that say the land on them, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Alex.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. Next, I'm going to go to Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Alex from Destination Cleveland. I like the design. It reminds me of graffiti sometimes back in the day when we were growing up. And you would have the artist put graffiti all over the walls. And now we're here in this day and it looks like a little bit of the graffiti. Now, what I will say is I kind of like the design a little bit, but getting in contact with the local representatives when you're getting ready to put up a mural is very important.
Agreed.
Because sometimes you miss something. And that little bit that you miss is the historical perspective. And understanding the citizens and the history is significant. For an example, we're here at this building, the 205 building. I don't know if you know the history here. And here at this particular building was where we lit the first light bulb for the world, here in Cleveland. And had our first street lights here. So it would have been nice to put words like lighting up Cleveland, or Cleveland, shining a light on the world. Using the words, the art is nice, but words have a powerful and profound impact on people, like hope, peace, love. When people come by and they see the art and they see woven within the art is a good message. Like Cleveland lighting the way. These are examples, and I'm not sure if it's too late to do something here, but this particular location is a historical landmark, and Cleveland has done, unfortunately, a bad job in branding itself and marketing itself to the world and to the people who come here to understand that a lot of the first things that have ever happened here in this city. So it has that historical nature to it. And I would like to hear your comments as relates to me reflecting just on this particular site location alone.
Yeah, certainly, Councilman. Happy to. So as far as design goes, one thing you'll notice in the renders on paper, there's some hidden images that we've asked the graphic designer to insert among the abstract things. We came up with a list of those that just sort of reflect fun things about the city, but perhaps there's an opportunity to put some more of the history lesson into those objects, which Design Review and Planning Commission have given us the leeway to work with in the final renovation. So I hear the arc lamp, I hear themes of light and of hope, so I'd be happy to work with you, Councilman, or anyone at the table to put some more of those hidden images in there that represent the history of this building. That'd be a valuable thing.
And I think that if you do that, you have a better design, you have a better look, and then you have something that truly, because at the end of the day, art is supposed to have an impact. And people just sitting there looking at it. Yeah, how does it make you feel when you look at the art? What do you get out of it? Even if you're quickly passing by it, how does it catch your attention? And what is the impact? And for me, I'm just appreciative and thankful that I have this day. But when I go down there to that alleyway and I see that art, it should say something. It should have some meaning to it. So I look forward to working with you, Alex, and talking about the possibility of a mural in the Lee Harvard neighborhood as well. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Next, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Marr.
Thank you. Just briefly, you mentioned the upkeep of the mural and the hot wrap helping to improve if one of the panels is degraded or covered over for some reason. And, you know, one of the prior 6 is in my neighborhood on Fleet. I also passed one of them at the Lorraine exit on 90 at West 80th and Lorraine Avenue. And that one has actually already started to degrade. There's some paint and chipping issues. So I'm wondering if there's any update from Destination Cleveland about the management of the prior painted ones, through the chair.
Yes, Councilwoman. We have been working with the building owner at West 80th. That mural was hit by a car approximately 2 weeks after we installed it, which was very unfortunate. The building owner, it's the way that our agreement with the building owner in those cases is, because those are private locations, it's their responsibility to maintain the building, and it is our responsibility to maintain the mural. He's working through an insurance claim to get that wall fixed, and as soon as it is, we will be touching up that mural.
Great, thank you. And in case my one on Fleet ever has similar issues, would you be the right contact person?
I would be.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right. Is there any other questions on ordinance number 404, 2024?
Yes.
Councilman Hairston?
Thank you, through the chair, to give me your name again.
Mr. Harnotes.
What's your first?
Alex.
Mr. Alex. I don't want to mess your name up, so
That's all right.
Mr. Alex. Mr. Alex, so has Councilman McCormick seen these designs?
Councilman, that's a very good question. We engaged with Councilman McCormick early on in this process. I believe that he was at either the design review or the planning commission meeting, but I would have to look back at my specific notes to see if he has seen this specific design.
Gotcha. I would like to know whether that's important that council members know what's going up in their neighborhoods. And downtown is a neighborhood that he represents, and so.
If I may, through
Sure.
the chair of the councilman, we did send this image to Councilman McCormick, and he is in support.
Okay, all right. So we'll make sure we ask as well. Trust but verify, always. So it's okay. He's seen this design, as our commissioner stated. Councilman Jones is correct. Like when you artwork, you want some feeling and some meaning out of it, right? I mean, it's nice, right? It's colorful, you know. And if the councilman's okay with it, then I'm okay with it. Just the application. You mentioned panels, and you also mentioned vinyl wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Is it both or one?
Councilman, they're one and the same. So if you think about the scale of this, the vinyl comes off of a plotter printer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it comes off in big rectangles that's then cut to shape. So it's going up applied in, say, 5 by 8 panels to compose the whole work.
Gotcha. When I think of panels, I think of actual panel that's anchored to the wall.
No,
right?
not canvases or panels. It
Right.
is applied directly to the main.
Because there are art designs that are actual, they're made on panels, and the panels are fixed to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said panels, my mind went to actual panel that artwork is on, that you can take artwork on and off of. These are vinyl sheets that are applied to the wall, to the masonry, right?
That's correct, Councilman.
Okay. All right. And can you get us a list of the locations of the city murals that you are putting up throughout the neighborhoods, or the neighborhood murals, whatever you call them, Mr. Alex? Through the chair.
Yes, through the chair to the councilman, we started at 63rd and Fleet in Slavic Village.
You don't have to list them today.
Oh,
If you could just
okay.
get it back to us before finance today, I'd appreciate it. Just send a list over to Brooke and the chair, and they'll get that out to the committee members. Just a list of all your neighborhood locations for the murals that you have.
Certainly can.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harrison. All right, is there any other questions on ordinance number 404, 2024? Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 404, 2024 is approved.
Good, thank you.
Ordinance number 405, 2024. By council members Bishop and Griffin, this is a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts of trees and labor and materials needed for urban forestry services, including but not limited to maintaining and planting trees and removing trees, stumps, and tree waste material for the Division of Park Maintenance and Properties, Department of Public Works, and the Department of Aging and Community Development for a period of 1 year with 1 year option to renew, exercisable by the Director of Public Works. Okay, Director.
Thank you. Chair, this piece, this passed legislation will allow the Department of Public Works to enhance its aesthetic appeal by providing maintenance to existing trees, to be able to remove stumps, to be able to plant trees, and to handle tree waste and tree waste materials. The funding for this will be through general fund as well as capital, as well as community development block grant funds. This contract will actually expire. We actually have this piece will allow us to do more than one contract. So we want to do all things trees with this piece of legislation. So it could potentially be 3 different contracts. It may be, that's typically how we do it. We do one for stumps, we do one for tree planting, and we do one for tree removal. That's typically how we work. The current contract that we have right now is done with Van Kuren is doing the removal for the trees and for the stumps. And for tree planting, I believe it's Seascape. Seascape is the contract that we use now. These contracts are all set to expire. I believe the tree contract has 1 more year. The removal and the stump removal and tree removal is going to expire beginning of January of next year. So we're here to have legislation to be able to go out, put out bids to get new contracts. This is specifically what this contract is for.
Okay, Director, what's the dollar amount on this contract?
So again, because there are several contracts, the removal contract is about $3 million, up to $3 million. The stump removal contract is up to about $500,000. And the tree planting contract, as it exists now, is up to about $320,000.
Okay, so do you have the approximate number of trees that we can plant with this piece of legislation?
So given the amount of funding and the approach that we want to take as far as making sure that we take care of all of our liabilities that are out there, we believe we can plant about $100,000 worth of trees this year.
You say about $100,000 worth of trees?
For this year.
And that's approximately how many trees?
That comes down to about 200, I think, let me make sure.
About 250, about
250.
250 trees? Okay. All right. I'm going to go to my Vice Chair, Councilman Richard Starr.
Hey, thank you, committee. And only thing I would have to ask about this ordinance is some tree in my ward, we have tree stumps that is breaking up the sidewalk, and residents is being told it's their responsibility for that tree. So through this ordinance, I know you are able to get rid of some trees. Is this something that we can do in certain neighborhoods?
So through the chair to the councilman, with this specific piece of legislation, it's only for us to go out to contract. So it's not about, so for instance, if we wanted to remove a stump, we could have removed a stump there, but as far as the responsibility for the tree, that wouldn't be handled through this ordinance. That would be something we'd have to probably do in other pieces of legislation, but not through this specific piece.
Okay, because definitely, I know we're going to do a ride-along with the commissioner this Wednesday. Just a couple different areas off in Broadway, some areas in Community College, where you can see, when you come down the street, you can see that the tree has outgrown where it was planted at, and is damaging the whole sidewalk. So is there funding available to the chair to be able to address those type of issues, to get those trees cut? Because if a council member wanted to redo a sidewalk, we could redo the sidewalk, but that tree is still problematic for that sidewalk. So is there some ways to be able to get those type of tree stumps cut down through council or through the city?
Through the chair and to the councilman. So with that particular piece, there's a 50-50 sidewalk program, which is kind of like a 2-year backlog. That's how most residents are resolving the lifting of the sidewalk and the tree issue. There's no funding in this particular one. That would be another piece that we should indeed talk about.
All right, because I'm asking, because it looked like you're saying that you're able to get rid of trees. So if you're able to get rid of some trees, to the chair, what kind of trees are you able to get rid of?
The trees that are in the vacant lots, some are on the tree lines that are not lifting up the sidewalks, and some that are in vacant properties
So I got a question.
as well, I'm sorry.
All right, so through the chair or to this committee, is there a way to amend this ordinance that it can include some of the 50/50 sidewalk trees?
So through the chair to the councilman, do believe that's another piece of legislation, because this is simply just for us to be able to go out and get contracts. How we manage and use those contracts, well, other legislations will speak to that. For instance, the 50/50 program, or legislation that we have for like 509. Those pieces are going to address what we can do with this contract once we get it. But this actual piece is just to say we can actually go out and get contracts.
All right, and through the chair to the assistant director, do you know the last time anything was amended regarding 50/50 sidewalk? When was that program last assessed?
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't know exactly when that happened. I know that was, I would say within the last 5 years. I don't have the exact date, but we can get back to you with that time. I think that's more of a MOCAP kind of question, but we can get with them and find out through the chair to the councilman when that 50/50 program legislation.
Yep, and to our staff then, council, I think Ms. Saban over there, can you send me the 50/50 ordinance? I want to take a good look at it. And just to my colleagues, I believe if it's a tree, lawn that was planted, and it is damaging the sidewalks, I think it's unfair that we will require residents to spend some money to get it uptake. Because if it was up to resident, some of these trees probably wouldn't get planted in certain areas, because you will see what it's doing to the infrastructure and how much damage it's causing. And then you're going to look up 100 years from now when we have a new body, and they're going to be talking about all these trees that were planted and if they're doing damage to the good. No, this is not a comment of we don't want trees planted.
Sure.
It's all about where we are actually planting those trees in certain areas inside of the city that can cause damage. Yes, we want trees, but we want to make sure we really assess the area, type of projects or development that is looking to come into those areas, and not just saying it's an open field, let's plant trees, and then we have to deal with the maintenance later on. So definitely I want to look at the 50/50 sidewalk plan, and I think there should be some revision in which we should have funding available that the city just take care of these trees and just get them right, so we can have sidewalks and places for kids to walk up and down the street. So I definitely want to look at that, and that's all the question I have, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. Next, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Marr.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Councilman, I know that you asked for the chair's attention. Okay, you're good. All right, sorry, I misunderstood. All right. The tree planting, I want to understand if that includes follow-up watering or instructions to the homeowners for follow-up watering. One thing I've learned during this about tree planting is that you can't just plop those trees in the ground. Mature trees can, weather different conditions, but young trees can't. So how are we handling the maintenance in the first few years of the tree's life?
Yes, that's part of the contract, Councilwoman. It's no plant and go situation. So they are to plant and then monitor them for one of the contracts had 3 years. I'm not for sure what this piece has, 2 years. But they're to monitor them, make sure they're healthy, and then we take them over after that.
Yeah.
And by monitor, does that include regular watering through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, no, we have, in the past, we did watering, but it's a lot more to add that. So to be able to plant more trees, we pulled back the watering. We could add that, but it will substantially increase the cost to plant these trees, and that's why currently we've not done that.
Okay. I mean, I think would you acknowledge through the chair that means a higher percentage of these trees will not survive that initial 2 to 3 year period that we plant through the chair?
So I think it depends on the species of tree. That's why we would like the Urban Forestry Committee to be a part of the picking of the species, because a lot of these trees that are being planted are not the correct species for the areas that they're in.
Right.
Yeah.
So that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I guess what I would also like to see is some resident information. If you're getting a tree lawn tree, it should be a low lift to get a pamphlet that also says, you know, you should be watering
Absolutely.
this amount. It shouldn't add more to the cost or significantly more to the cost. And if we're just monitoring the trees, frankly, they're not going to catch the issue until it's already too late.
Yeah.
And as you can tell, if it's $100,000 for 250 trees, that is a lot of money per tree.
absolutely.
And we should be cherishing that investment in our tree canopy
Absolutely.
through the chair.
Through the chair, to the councilman, you are correct. And we can do that. We can, I think in the past, a long time ago, we did do things like that. We can continue, we can go back to that and do that. With the guarantee, if those trees don't survive, the contractor's on the hook to replant. So we don't necessarily lose that. That's why we have that guarantee, that time to be able to monitor and make sure that those trees survive.
Okay, so to be clear, under this contract, if the tree dies in the 2-year period, our contractor is on the hook for replacing it.
Through the chair, to the councilman, that's correct.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. On stump grinding, how many stumps approximately do we think we can take out with this amount of money through the chair?
That number is not in here. It's not in here, yeah. Can I get back with you with the number? It's printed, but it's not
Yeah,
in here.
I'm trying to get a sense of the proportion of our backlog we can handle with this
Yeah.
amount of money. I have a lovely woman, Miss Houston, who's been waiting for her stump to be ground on her tree lawn tree for the whole time I've been in office. And obviously our numbers have been very minimal for the past few years because of this contract. And I want to get a sense of whether I can call Miss Houston and say, hey, this is going to get done, or whether it's not.
So through the chair, to the councilwoman, I can give some context, and it will depend on what the contractor comes back for the cost, the size of the stump. In the last contract that we did, which was probably about, I would say maybe 6 or 7 years ago,
Yeah.
with about $500,000, we did about maybe 600 or 700 stumps.
Okay.
Now, again, that was based on the price that we were quoted then and the size of those stumps as we went out. Through the chair, to the councilwoman.
Okay. Okay. I do notice there was a lot of questions. Councilman Starr raised some good questions about sidewalks, and I do notice mocap in the room. Chair, I want to ask about whether the ARPA Back to Basic Streets will be included in the tree damage sidewalk program. I know it's a little bit adjacent to that, but Chair, would you be okay if I ask the mocap folks to join to answer that question?
Well, Councilwoman, we can ask them when they come to the table.
Okay, yeah, that'd be
Okay.
fine. You had Director DeRosa like ready to go. I'm curious about that. I've had a couple of resident questions and I wasn't sure. Okay, and then last question, I'll just note both for mocap and for trees that I had a contractor mess up some of my trees when doing sidewalk repairs recently, and a number of the trees had to be removed, and it's been unclear to me whether the contractor or the city will pay for trees to be planted in the places that trees had to be removed. I don't know whether you have a sense of whether that would be covered under this program or sort of how we prioritize the planting locations,
So,
given that we have not been planting for the past couple of years through the chair.
So through the chair, to the councilwoman, if you have the street, if we have that, I don't know if we have that information, if you can get it to us.
Yeah.
In the past, we've been able to go after contractors and get paid for that.
Yeah.
So if that's an opportunity to do that, we will do that. So if we can get the street and the number of trees, and we can start the process to figure out what we can do.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. Director, please, we don't have a summary for this piece of legislation. Please, going forward, could we?
I apologize, we did have one for you. I don't know what happened with that. but
We didn't. It didn't make it to our tablets. Okay, so that's important that we have the summary.
I do apologize. We did
Okay.
have something prepared, so I will make sure that you all get that.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
All right, and so Councilwoman Moore, stick a pin in that. We're going to ask MoCap that same question. We'll go to Councilman Joe Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your request from the administration to make sure that when they're bringing legislation in front of us, we do have that summary. It does break it down, and we don't have to sit here and spend a lot of time trying to figure out how many tree stumps and what is the cost of this. Now, certainly I support the legislation, Mr. Chairman, because the need is so great in our communities because we do have a backlog. But having that summary is significantly important because what we're talking about here, Mr. Chairman, is two issues, right? We're talking about planting trees and what that cost is, and we're talking about removing stumps, right? So, Mr. Chairman, what is the total to the director that you're asking for and requesting here?
So through the chair to the councilman, we're asking, these will be requirement contracts, but to put it in context, the current tree removal and trimming contract, it has up to $3.4 million.
How much?
Up to $3.4 million.
So it's going to be $3.4 million that this contract in terms of renewal?
Yes.
Okay,
over
so
a
and how
2-year
many
period.
renewals is it?
It's 1 year with a 1-year option to renew.
Right. So Mr. Chairman, it would be really helpful to know. And Mr. Chairman, does the director can give us any preliminary estimates on what we're actually looking at in terms of stump removal?
So again, through the chair to the councilman, we'll get you actually what we plan to do for the. I think it was we said about 200 and what 200.
And Mr. Chairman, on such an important piece of legislation, why don't we have urban forestry here to really answer these questions? Because we're talking about trees, how they are planted, and it seems like we don't have anybody here at the table that can tell us about how these processes work. Will this, because I have Kinsman Avenue, and I get all these trees, and we have not, the previous administration have not maintained that street. And we have a number of trees that have been removed, knocked down. We need to have them replaced. So let me ask the question, is Kinsman Avenue on your list?
Through the chair to the councilman Kinsman Avenue for tree replacement.
That's correct. When we designed Kinsman Avenue back in the 1990s, coming in 2001, when Mark Ricudo was the chairman of public service, we redesigned that entire street. We put in pavers and brick pavers. And when you look at Kinsman Avenue and a very historic neighborhood, Mount Pleasant, it's horrible how the city just didn't do any maintenance at all for the investment that was made in that street. It makes our community look bad. It makes our people look bad. It is a historical neighborhood. And so my question is, will we get those trees replaced on Kinsman Avenue in this money?
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm not going to guess at that.
Can we have it? Can we have those trees replaced on Kinsman Avenue?
Through the chair to the councilman, we can definitely do that. When that happens, though, I can't promise that it's going to happen this year. I can't promise it's going to happen next year. It really is a matter of our first focus really is to get our baseline together. We have a huge backlog of removals that need to happen. And in our mind, we are concerned about liability, about these trees coming down. And so that's the first thing we want to do. We do want to plant trees, but when we plant the trees, we have to be very cautious about where and how we plant those trees. So it's not that we won't, it's just a matter of when, and that is the issue. And to tell you, I can't say it's going to happen this year.
Well, no, I just want to know that and I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, to the director to say, hey, it's on our radar screen.
Absolutely.
Because at least I got something to work with here,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Because what we're talking about is 6 years of nothingness.
Absolutely.
And
Understood.
so being able to know that it's on your radar screen is important to me. It's important to the people I represent.
Absolutely.
And I will say this, Mr. Chairman, when it comes to stump removal, and this stump removal, tree removal, this is infrastructure stuff, Mr. Chairman, and this would have been something good where we could have really used ARPA funds versus coming back into the general fund or borrowing money in order to do the basic work. ARPA should have been utilized in this affair in terms of being able to get caught up. And so I support, Mr. Chairman, the fundamentals of this legislation because I understand, Mr. Chairman, how important it is. And I also, like my colleague, Mrs. Moore, talked about one of her constituents. I have a constituent and several constituents that have stumps that need to be removed off of their tree lawn, but the city hasn't came by and done that. So I hope that these resources that are here will be able to do that. And I have all of East 178th Street, I have Throckley, I have Talford, I have Invermere Avenue, I have some other community streets where the promise was made that once you got it resurfaced, that you would come and fix these sidewalks. And these sidewalks have not been fixed. And it's causing me all sorts of issues throughout the neighborhood. So how would this piece here help to fill the backlog?
So through the chair to the councilman, as far as sidewalks go, this contract wouldn't speak to any of that. This contract is specifically to be able to go out and have someone plant trees, remove stumps.
Right.
That's all this piece is for.
And then this goes to the finance next, right?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, will you be able to have the summary breakdown in the finance?
Absolutely.
Now, will you be coming back today to the finance for this?
Through the chair to the councilman, if they pass it through, yes, we will.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I would like to have that information. And also, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that if you're coming through finance, if you could have the urban forestry here, because this is significant to the urban forestry piece, because she should be here. I don't know why she's not here.
So through the chair to the councilman, I believe that she had some interviews to do.
Pardon?
She was doing some interviews. Jennifer Kemp, the
Okay.
manager, was doing
Can we, if she can't make it, Mr. Chairman, can you have someone from Urban Affairs? You know, because I'm quite sure you will have someone there can tell us about, you know, the planting of the different species and how you need to maintain it, because the distinguished lady brought up a very good concept about how do we inform our residents, and I think that, Mr. Chairman, to the director, as we are elected officials, we want to make sure that we serve our citizens best. And so how do we super serve them? We serve them making sure that they get that information. And I didn't know if, Mr. Chairman, do you have some of that information that could be made available? And do you have an idea of what species are going to be planted throughout the city of Cleveland?
So through the chair to the councilman, I don't have that with me. That's something when I'll see if the urban forestry manager has those species with her.
And how much does it cost, Mr. Chairman, to remove a stump?
So through the chair to the councilman, as I explained to Council Moore, that it depends on the size of the stump. So in the past, I can give context and whatever the cost is of the contract at the time. So I can give context before, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, at about $750,000, we moved about 600 stumps.
How much?
$750,000, we moved about 5 to 600 stumps.
So is that a mid-sized stump or that's a huge stump?
That's an average.
That's an average
That's
stump?
an average.
So it's about $405 to
That's
remove it?
about an average.
Okay, is that about right?
Yeah.
Am I good or what?
I will give you that
Right,
through
I
the
know
chair
you
to the
have to,
councilman.
because I know my business.
Okay.
And so
understood.
let me ask you this real quick. So then how many stumps are you looking to remove at an average $405 a stump? Anywhere between $405 to $475.
So again, through the chair to the councilman, it will depend on whatever with our contract, whatever the cost is, whatever the amount that the vendor says that they will charge us per. So given that, we can we can determine how many stumps there will be. But at this time, that's why I gave you the context on the last contract and the last amounts.
So all the trees that you're going to plant then, let's switch up. All the trees that you're going to plant, right, they're all going to be on tree lawns in front of people's homes, or are we going to plant them in other spaces and places?
So through the chair to the councilman, the original intent is to plant in the tree lawns.
On tree lines on
That
in
is
front
the
of
intent.
residential homes?
Through the chair to the councilman.
Mr. Chairman, it would be good that I'm going to come to the Finance Committee just so I can get this information. So if you could have it available, I'd be so appreciative, Mr. Chairman, to the director, and thank you. I don't have any unreadiness, Mr. Chairman, in supporting this legislation. Certainly the citizens need this service, and it's good that the administration has acknowledged that we need to have these funds, and I yield back to the chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Yeah, Councilman Jones brought up a good point. We do really need a plan. We want to see a plan. I mean, we know these are requirement contracts, but we need a plan going forward. And also, we need to know if when we're going to get caught up on our backlog. I'm going to go to Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, this $3.4 million, I know last year we ran out of money relatively quickly for removing trees through contracts. So, Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, how much was this piece of legislation last year?
Through the chair to the councilman, again, about the same, around $3 million or
right.
so.
Would it be safe to assume, Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, that the same situation is going to occur this year where we won't be able to remove trees, especially those that are in danger of falling over because we don't have money in our contract? If it's the same thing as that happened last year?
So through the chair to the councilman, I would not assume that. I would assume that we do have internal staff. So in the worst case scenario, if the contractor can't, our internal staff can handle those.
All right. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, that's going to be my next question. Information that you provide, can you let us know how many trees were removed via contracts and how many were removed internally? And then, Mr. Chairman, to the Director or the Assistant Director, within the contracts, is stump removal part of the contract when we contract with somebody to remove a tree?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, I forget your title.
This commissioner.
All right. Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner then, is there any incidents where we have paid the contract, but the stump has not been removed? Because that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the tree come down, but then the stumps not sit there for over a year, 2 years. Are there any incidences where we're paying for that tree to come down, but not getting the full service as per the contract? Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, Assistant Director.
Sure. Through the chair to the councilman. Yes.
Okay.
However, they have different machinery, so when they come out, they have a crew that cuts the tree and then a crew that's supposed to come behind it and remove the stump. So there's two different crews we're working with. Van Kuren, they sometimes send other crews out. They have crews in every area, and they sometimes send other crews out. So there is times that happens, but they are to come back and remove the stump. If we find out that they haven't removed the stump, we reach out, and they're pretty quickly, and they'll come back out and do it.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, then the question would be, why do we pay when we know, or is there follow-up from the city to make sure that the job is 100% totally complete, including stump removal, prior to paying the contract? Because I'm visioning it like this. Like, we have a tree in front of Councilman Bishop's house that needs to come down, right? Van Kuren gets the contract, they go out, or they get a contract just to remove that one tree, right? It's not like they're under contract
Yeah, we give
in
them the
whole.
work.
So, right, so they get that. They go out, they remove the tree, they invoice the city. We pay them. Are they invoicing us for removing the tree and removing the stump? No, and then is there follow-up from the city to make sure that both
It's a retainage.
parts are done?
Yes. So there's a retainage fee that we hold to make sure the job is complete. So
Okay.
once we verify that the job is complete, then we pay off the rest of it.
Okay, so we do pay them, so the contracts then, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, essentially are two-part. One for removing the tree, right?
Yes.
And then one for removing the stump.
Correct.
Right, so it's not just one. So we technically could, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, contract with, we're just using Van Kuren because that's the name that keeps going up, to remove 100 trees, right? Just if we had that many. But then we could contract with somebody else to go back and stump,
Yes.
correct? All right. That, somehow, there's the disconnect, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, in removing the trees and the stumps. And I think you need to seriously take a look at, I have streets where they're tree-lined streets, and these trees are monster oaks, and they're just at the tail end of their lives, right? I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. They're all over 140 years old, whatever. And we're starting to see a number of them fall.
Yeah.
All right, and then it creates a lot of home damage, et cetera. But when we try contacting urban forestry, and the answer is, well, we ran out of money in the contracts because for whatever reason, now we have to wait. Now we're rolling the dice, right? Because we know the trees are bad. We know, urban forestry has confirmed that it's at its life expectancy, but we don't have money to take it down. That's a roll of the dice that we're taking with homeowners, especially in these monster oak trees that we have on some tree lawns. So I don't know how we relook at this, Mr. Chairman, but the tree removal and then the stumping has to be hand in hand with each other. And then we haven't even touched on tree lawn restoration, right?
So-
I have seen some terrible, terrible jobs with tree lawn restoration where you get absolutely nothing done with restoration of a tree lawn. I could give you example after example with tree lawn restoration. So it's something else that we probably should look at as well, if that's included in the contract. Because sometimes tree lawn restoration is just a matter of, removing the sawdust, putting some dust, throwing some grass seed. But there's other tree lawns where that's not the case, right? Some of them may need a little bit more of a TLC to restore the tree lawn. Some of them not so much, but it's something that we should take a look at as well. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Assistant Director. Thanks, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. We all share in the same frustrations that you share in because a lot of times in my ward, we just don't know it's the disconnect. Tree comes down and we calling about the stump and just restoration of tree lawn, and we just seem to be butting our head against the wall. Is there any more questions on ordinance 405, 2024?
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Anthony Harrison.
Just real quick, through the chair to the team, you mentioned, Commissioner, trees on vacant lots. Are these just city-owned or are these abandoned private-owned lots as well? Because sometimes we'll get a tree next to a resident that it's not in the city's name, but it's abandoned. Clearly, we're cutting the grass. We got a high tax bill of tractor fees. Will we be able to address any safety concerns that may exist on those lots as well?
So that's our main concern, is addressing the safety issue. So once a tree falls and if it's causing a hazard, we remove it. Afterwards, we check to figure out who the lot belongs to, if it's causing any hazard to the neighborhood. So that's when I say vacant lot trees, that's what I mean.
Sure. So through the chair, so I'm clear. If I have Miss Hammond on the street and a lot next door to her, and this tree is over in her yard and touching her garage, but it's not city-owned, that this contract will allow us to address that and then go back and build or
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harrison.
Sure.
One question, if a city removes a tree, would the city go back and remediate the stump?
Yes.
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 So,
We should. If we
We
have
should,
the
or-
capacity and we have the equipment to do it, yes, we should. But our main focus is making sure that it's not a hazard to the neighborhood, to anybody.
Okay, so when you say we should, that means we
Yes.
will.
Yes.
Right.
and to the chair, we do have a separate stump contract. So in those cases where we take down a tree, we have a stump contract to come after the stumps. Because sometimes the difficulty with the stumps is not so much grinding it, is, as you know, getting rid of all that wood waste and then restoring the tree trunk. So that's why we have a contract that will remove the stump and restore the ground. But again, it's limited money, limited funds to be able to get to that.
Okay, all right, thank you, Assistant Director. Commissioner, I got a question. Either you may be able to answer this. Our public spaces, our public properties, and our public spaces, the grasses, I'm not sure if you can see this, but the grass is this high in some of my public spaces, in my right-of-ways. When are we going to get those places taken care of? And what's the problem with the grass being cut? And this is not just one place. This is quite a few different areas in my ward, and I've seen it in other wards also. Our rec centers, where these folks, if this was private individual, they could be cited by the city. So when, what is the issue with our grass not being mowed this spring, this season?
So we've been in every ward, actually. We started our season April 22nd. We've been in every ward thus far.
Okay.
We completed a lot of wards, and then we're mowing through the rest of the wards.
Okay. So specifically my rec center, very, very high grass
Make sure.
at my rec center. I think that was cut. I'm not exactly sure how many times it was cut, but I have on East 116th and Martin Luther King, we have a median in the middle. You cannot see the traffic from one side of the street to the other side of the street because the grass is a little high. So I'm not exactly sure what's the hold up on that.
Okay. No, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
I'll make sure I get to that.
On the point, Mr. Chairman?
All right, you got a point, Councilman Jones?
I concur with your words. Like, when I'm sitting here, and some folks may take it personal, but I represent the citizens of my neighborhood, and they're kicking my butt about these issues all the time. And so when I sit here at this table, I've said in years past, whatever this department needs to get them up to where they need to be to handle this issue as it relates to vacant lots. I've been pounding on the vacant lot property issue since day one, coming in here in 2018. You might be familiar, Commissioner, am I right? And I'm going to say it again. What can we do as council to give you the tools, you and the commissioner who's sitting here, necessary to do a better job? Because every year around this time, we're getting our souls handed to us. And you're not on those phones, this commissioner's not on those phones, and the director's not on these phones. And my office staff and myself is getting whooped in the grocery stores, whooped when we go to the churches, whooped when we go out in those streets. And we just want to know, what is it we can do as a council to give you the tools? And then I'll say this again, Mr. Chairman, I'll bring this up again. This is another example of using ARPA funding to get us caught up, get the tools, the resources necessary to do the work. Because I don't know if it's an issue of capacity. So, Mr. Chairman, can the director talk about that? Because I'm having the same issues right now between, it's a vacant lot, and every year I get hounded by my citizens concerning it because it never seems to get cut and maintained. That's me between Myrtle Avenue and Preby Avenue. You might be familiar. Sure. And one of the things I've said in the past, Mr. Chairman, to the directors, previous directors and commissioners, how do we take care of what's out on our main streets? Because if our city looks abandoned, it makes none of us look good. The mayor doesn't look good. I don't look good. No one in the neighborhood looks good, and it feels like the neighborhood is abandoned. Sure. So what can we do to give you, please, pretty please, with sugar on top? Because now I know you came to my neighborhood, as the commissioner said, and cut the first time, but you know this is the rainy season. Yeah. So how do we get kind of like ahead of the curve? Because we know every year during the rainy season, if you cut Ward 1 first, in 2 weeks, it's way up there. And then by third or fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh week, the grass is all the way up here. So how do we get ahead of that?
So through the chair to the councilman, I do want to say that this commissioner and this group have been trying to find every way possible with the current capacity we have to cut the grass, to maintain the entire city. It is a very large, as you all know, and I don't want to preach to the choir because you all understand that. We do have an issue with capacity. We do have an issue with equipment. We do have an issue with all those things. But again, it does boil down to, are we willing to make the true sacrifice of resources that it will take to get, for instance, I've heard at this table maybe a 2-week cut. I mean, that, if you put it in perspective, we're spending about $4 million or $5 million to get a 7-week cut. If you want to shrink that down, you're probably talking about quadrupling that cost.
You said 4 to 5 million?
We've spent about $4 million right now.
For every time you go out and cut?
For our current, this is what we spend through Snyder Blake and those other things, right? We spend about that much. So if we really wanted to cut that down, you have to think about every cycle that you want to add, you're going to have to add that amount. And we're not, and that doesn't talk about tractors, it doesn't talk about cutters, it just talks about the labor force and what it costs to actually put people out there. And then we've got to talk about trucks to move people and weed eaters. There is and I don't want to sit here and give you a absolute number, but what I do want to give you the context of that, to be able to go out, and again, folks, they were out in your ward, you know that, they went and cut. It got warm, it rained, it got cold. That just makes it grow. And so the reality is, what we have right now, getting back, we'll be lucky to get back in 6-7 weeks to be able to do that. And it's not that we are sitting on our thumbs, but it is really a gargantuan task. There's also things that I believe have to be considered about how we reuse the property. As we get more vacant lots, as people tear down more houses, we get more work. There has to be, I believe there has to be thought about how we repurpose the land. What happens to the land? Do we keep cutting it, or do we do other things? Now, again, this is my personal opinion. I don't speak for as far as the administration. This is what I would say. But again, that has to go through other people, and they have to make decisions about how that works. And again, as you know, do we put resources here? Do we get a fire truck? Do we get a police car? Do we, these are the kind of decisions we have to think about when we're doing that. We are doing everything. We are working overtime. We're working on weekends to try to keep up, but it is just Mother Nature is working against us, and we have to work with what we have.
And Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the chairman bringing this up, because I don't want you or the administration to think I'm beating you up on these issues. These issues are happening to me. I'm getting whooped in these streets. And the citizens are like, what is the deal? And so I appreciate what you're saying. And I talked to your commissioner here in my office, and I want to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Williams, the director, for at least looking at some different looks in terms of being able to see how we can get contractors in to assist out. I think this is going to, Mr. Chairman, be a multifaceted look here, and I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, when we look at it and just the contractor side, there was a time when you had nonprofit organizations that were stepping up to the table to assist with getting these lots taken care of. And then also, there was a time under Mike White's administration where people were getting paid a stipend to cut the vacant lots next door. So I don't know what it is that we have to do, but this is an ongoing issue. It's constantly happening, and citizens in the city of Cleveland want to know, what are we doing down here to fix that issue? And so I'm just suggesting that as being one of the issues, and I appreciate the fact that the administration is looking at it. Can we look at the possibility of a stipend potentially to throw into this, to have citizens who live next door to these properties to look out for them, because there's 2 vacant lots next to me, and I went out there and cut them really nicely because the grass was tall. I got a vacant structure down the street, I got another 2-3 vacant lots, and I got another house that has grass on there, and I tend to go and cut them because it makes the neighborhood look bad. And I'm right down the street as an elected official, and it makes me look bad when they come and knock on my door on a Saturday or Sunday, because I live in the neighborhood, and the citizens don't have no reservations letting me have it where I'm at in this community. So it's a community that has great demands, and they have great expectations, and they want to see that change. And I'm going to say, I appreciate the administration looking at putting contractors in, but how can we look at this also in the multifaceted approach and maybe even putting stipends in there? Because it seems like all hands are going to have to be on deck to deal with this issue.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones.
Through the chair, to the council member, and to the council at large, we are employing, and hopefully you remember, as upon my onboarding, I did make mention of the fact that this is going to be an approach that would take, it would be a multifaceted approach, and one approach that would not be able to be rectified in 1 or 2 seasons. It is an actual 18-month lead time on some of the equipment that we utilize throughout the Department of Public Works as it relates to trucks and certain pieces of equipment. As you know, we have worked on adding local contractors. We're looking at utilizing court community service, and we're looking at different approaches that would utilize best management practices for this type of work. The realities are, though, that City of Cleveland has taken on the responsibility that most municipalities do not take on. And with the inclusion of things like Residents First and things like that, there's going to make tearing down homes a more efficient, expedient process. The reality is the flip side of that is it increases my inventory of more work to do on top of the right-of-ways, on top of the parks, and on top of all the public spaces in which the chairman mentioned. So we have several different programs that run concurrently when you talk about vacant structures, vacant lots, and then also trying to assist with the occupied structures and things of that sort, and those dynamics as well. Now, again, with what we're doing, the staffing approaches as it relates, I mentioned that we were going to be looking at the staffing approaches and whether we should still continue with the Snyder-Blake approach with that, also with the local contractors and things of that sort. We put that together in record time and put that on the street to get it out there. However, with that inclusion of those local contractors, they all have to be worked with individually to be able to work within our system, understand what to cut, when to cut it, and also be injected into our work order management system. So again, we have a few months every year to try to get better at this program, and we continue to work toward it. But there are some things, there's some challenges that we do have that I inherited. I will say this, I am very proud of the staff and the reactions that they've made, but they won't be overnight. And so for everyone that does get phone calls, I promise I get calls from the whole city, not just from one ward. So I feel that pain too, but again, I think we have to be realistic about the expectation, the equipment that I have, the staffing that I have, and really take a look at it from a real perspective as it relates to even comparing last year to this year. We are behind a little bit on the right-of-way mowing and on the vacant structures, but you haven't seen over the last 5 years vacant lots at the clip they've been on. Your ward especially was the first one out of the gate, and we finished it first for all the vacant lots. So it's very disingenuous to sit here and my staff get beat up over something that we've moved the ball every year since I've been here a little bit further, and we continue to do so. I appreciate the support from council. I appreciate the continued support, but all I would ask for is just a little grace, a little time, and I will gladly let you know the things that we've done to move the ball forward. But again, it's going to take some patience. It's going to take some time over these seasons. I inherited a situation that was going on for more than 10 years before I showed up. So if you give us some time, and then we also had a change in leadership in this group. So again, I'm just asking for a little grace, a little time to be able to turn this program around, because I believe we can. We have some vacancies that we're filling right now as it relates to some of the management staff that oversees those things. We're putting some more inspectors on the street to really check on the quality of these things. So there are a lot of things that I really think that are going to be improving. But again, it's just going to take some time. They just will not happen over 1 or 2 seasons.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Director.
I really
Okay, Director. I have been seeing improvement in my vacant lots. I mentioned the vacant spaces. I mean, not the vacant spaces, but public spaces. Right. Okay. Is there any more questions on ordinance?
I'd like to respond.
Councilman Jones, he responded.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say this. Mr. Chairman, to the
Councilman Jones.
I really
Councilman
appreciate
Jones.
the work that you do.
Councilman Jones, can you let the chair acknowledge you?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I thought you did.
Go ahead, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought you did acknowledge me, so please forgive me. I didn't mean to shoot the gun here. But just to the director, so that you can be aware, I appreciate, but there's no disingenuous here. I want to work with you. I've already said, what do you need in your department to make you successful? Now, I had no idea that you were 18 months behind on getting equipment. So again, I have seen improvement in my neighborhood. I'm appreciative of the work you do. I don't want you to think that I'm here just to beat up on you on this table here about this issue. So again, I think that as the director, you have done a great job working for us here in the city. I've said that publicly on the floor of Cleveland City Council, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Yes, and so, unfortunately, the people we represent are on us. They want to see that change. So, even if that means we put something out in the neighborhood that states that, so that they can understand the issues here, that you're rebuilding a department, that the department was broken when you came here, and that now you're working to try to rebuild it, relook at how we approach the situation. And this council person is appreciative of that and appreciative of the work that you do for us in our neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 405, 2024 is approved. Please sign. All right, thank you, Director. I think that's all we have for you guys.
Thank you, sir.
And ladies, thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Can we call up MOCAP? And can we have also Port Control come to the table? All right, let's start with Port Control and MOCAP. Ordinance number 404, no, I'm sorry, ordinance number 402, 2024 by Council Members McCormick and Bishop by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to execute a deed of easement granting to the East Ohio Gas Company, DBA, Dominion Energy Ohio, certain easement rights in property located at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport and declaring that easement rights granted are not needed for the city's public use. Okay, Director.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, first start off, I do have an amendment to this particular piece as well. After it was first introduced, we were made aware that Dominion is now operating under a different name, and so proposing an amendment to correct the name on the proposed piece.
Okay, all right. You're right. Okay, so let me read the amendment. Ordinance number 402, 2024, as amended. There is no legal objection to the legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in the title, line 4, and in the first whereas clause, line 1, strike Dominion Energy Ohio and insert Enbridge Gas Ohio in both places. Number 2, in the first whereas clause, line 2, strike Dominion and insert Enbridge. Number 3, in the second whereas clause, line 1, in section 2, line 3, and in section 4, lines 3 and 4, strike Dominion and insert Enbridge in all 4 places. Number 4, in section 1, line 5, at the title of the legal description, strike Dominion. Okay, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So we are proposing an easement at Cleveland Hopkins Airport. Our new airport layout plan that is currently under review by the FAA identified an area on the west side of the field next to the NASA property, abutting the NASA Glenn property on that side of the airfield, as a corporate hangar area. We identified on the airport layout plan. And so we entered, actually, I don't know, this body approved us entering into a lease a year or 2 ago now with Sherwin-Williams Corporation for them to build a new corporate hangar in this area. And there are 1 to 2 more potential corporate hangar sites in this area. And so what this piece of legislation is doing is it allows an easement for formerly Dominion, now Enbridge, to add pipeline down West Hangar Road over on the Glen side, and it will allow for the Sherwin hangar to have the proper gas that it needs, along with other corporate tenants potentially in the future on this side of the airfield where it was designated. So seeking approval to enter into this easement agreement with Enbridge.
Okay, thank you, Director. We heard this in Transportation Committee. Is there any questions on ordinance number 402,
Mr. Chairman, just
2024? Councilman Jones?
Well, do you have a map showing exactly where that's at?
No, Mr. Chair, through the chairman of the councilperson, I don't have it with me, but I can certainly send it to you.
That'd be good. And then, you know, in the future, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman, if we have a map, it gives us a better idea geographically what you're actually talking about.
Through the chairman of the councilperson, no problem.
Thank you. No uneasiness, Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor.
All right, any other questions on 402, 2024? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 402, 2024 stands approved. Please sign.
Did you need me? Okay. Thanks.
As amended, 402 as amended. Is that? All right, thank you. Ordinance number 471, 2024, by Council Members Bishop and Griffin. It's a departmental request, an emergency ordinance to authorize the Director of Capital Projects to enter into an agreement with the Chagrin River Watershed Partners to participate in their grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for the Engaging Dugway Brook Communities in designing stream and wetland restoration projects by providing in-kind services. Okay, Director, you want to explain what this ordinance will do for the city?
Yes, sir. And before we start, to my left is Jay Rashelbach, who's our Park and Rec planner for MoCap. So this relates to Dugway Brook, which goes through Glenview Park, which is north of St. Clair between East 110th Street and East 112th Street. And the grant was applied for by the Chagrin River Watershed Partners. This is a nonprofit that services the communities that are within the Chagrin River watershed, including, you know, this area. And so they look to address current issues and minimize flooding, erosion, and water quality problems in that area. So related specifically to this park, they applied for and received a $500,000 grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, National Coastal Resiliency Fund. And the project is called Engaging Dugway Brook Communities in Designing Stream and Wetland Restoration Project. So essentially what they're looking to do is, originally they looked to see if they could daylight Dugway Brook, and currently they're looking to see if they could create an ephemeral or an intermittent stream that would kind of go through the park along the culverted stream to see if it would provide enhanced water quality through wetlands, green space, and and other water quality benefits. So as part of this grant, they needed to have a one-for-one match for the grant. The sewer district put in quite a bit of money, and the city of Cleveland, through the Mayor's Office of Capital Projects, offered a $25,000 in-kind staff time equivalency. And this would be time spent by Jay and spent by folks in the Division of Architecture and Site Development to help with the design, the plan, and also with the community engagement. The duration of the grant performance period would be June 1st of 2022 through October 1st of 2024. So this has been underway for quite a while, but we are, you know, like I said, they had to sort of retool what they were looking at, and so we're moving forward with the legislation now.
Okay, okay, Director, so you're still trying to figure this thing out, right? Is that what I'm saying, what I'm hearing?
Mr. Chairman, yes. And actually, this grant is only for a study. It's
Okay.
not for construction. Councilman Harrison's on board with the study, but anything that comes out of this would come back to the community for more engagement and funding.
All right, Councilman Harrison, you got any comments?
No, not really, Mr. Chair. I support the group's efforts and the work they've been doing here at the park. No, so fully support. I'm not sure why my name is not listed on 471, but I ask to the chair, to the clerk, we can add me to 471. I'd appreciate it. And just one question to the chair. The total grant award is what again? I'm looking for it. Oh, $500,000. And that came from the NFWF, correct, through the chair?
Through the chairman and the councilman, that's correct, from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's National Coastal Resiliency Fund.
And that study is costing $500,000 through the chair? What's the reason for that? Why so much?
Through the chair, there's a lot of engineering work that they're very technical and specialized.
Okay.
So they hired a firm called Wade Trim that just specialized stormwater engineers that just cost a lot of money. They also a lot of community engagement as well. So it just adds up over 2.5 years.
So this also includes community engagement?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so we need to make sure that this group are communicating or coordinating with Famico's Foundation, our CDC, and my office to make sure that we're all together on the resident communication. What I don't want to end up in, I receive a call, text, or email with a photo of something that's happening in, Ward 10, because this park sits in 10. It's in no other ward but Ward 10, and it's not really in close proximity to any other ward as well because of where it sits. So, I want to make sure that they are communicating with my office and our CDC to make sure that we are aware of interactions that are happening out in the neighborhood. And so it needs to be joint interactions, not, they just tell us when they're going out. But really, because I want this to be impactful, right? They don't know this neighborhood. I do, right? Born and raised, right? 10 streets up the road. So they need to make sure they reach out to us if we're going to support them in this grant. All right? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harris. Is there any questions on ordinance 471? Councilman Joe Jones.
Mr. Chairman, just, I'm not, have any unreadiness for the grant. Just want to know a little bit more about, you're talking about engaging and engineering. So is most of, you're going to be looking at new ways to put, and I'm trying to pull this out, of creating new wetlands in the area, and where would that geographically be located?
Through the chair, we're specifically looking at Glenview Park. Dugway Brook is buried underground, about 2,600 feet of that. We're initially looking at daylighting, but as Dr. Dresso said, we already ran into some problems with that. So we're looking to make it an ephemeral stream or make it an ephemeral wetland, and that's basically, it only gets wet when it rains. So really just to make some wetlands, some additional green space, maybe some programming to educate folks about wetlands and water quality. So it's going to be a little bit lesser project than we envisioned based on those problems we ran into. But we're just looking to enhance the space based on community input, what they would like to see into the park through this project.
Do you have an idea of what that would look like, a preliminary look on that, or is that a part of this whole study to design?
That's correct. This is part of this study, is to do the design and get community input to see what they would like to see in that preliminary design.
I see. And this is all to improve the water quality feeding back into Lake Erie, correct?
That's correct. Water quality, but there's also significant surface flooding, so this would help with that, and basement flooding as well, because this is connected to the sewer, combined sewer, so this would also help with that as well. So there's kind of a lot of benefits to it.
Right. So then putting that in place would help to, I presume, clean the water before it gets off into the Lake Erie, presumably the natural process of purifying water through the land, I would presume. Is that the case?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, just to put on the radar screen to the director and to this distinguished organization, some years back, we were receiving a lot of algae bloom in Lake Erie's water, and how it was really killing our water here in the city of Cleveland, the quality of our water. And a lot of that was coming out of Sandusky and in those zones, in those areas. And I was told way back in that period of time, about maybe 5 years ago, that the city would be looking at ways and means to kind of connect with that county to try to figure out how we can stop all of the chemicals that's on that farmland coming into the Lake Erie and creating these huge blooms. And I didn't know if there was anything being done, or I hadn't heard anything, Mr. Chairman, to the director.
Through the chairman of the councilman, I know that I know it's a major concern for our entire region, but our department's not the one focused on that, and I'm not exactly sure who is participating. I know that Cleveland Water monitors it because it impacts our water quality. I also know that there's been sort of a inter-county, maybe even an interstate task force to look at it, all the way around the edge of Lake Erie, but we're not the ones focused on it, so I don't really have all the details.
Is there someone I can talk to concerning that? Because at the end of the day, I'm not sure if they're doing anything with it or not, and I do know that can and will have an impact, and unfortunately, due to the fact that we do have climate change, that this is an issue, and I'm not sure if they've even began to address the issue in that county.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure who the point person would be, but I know that Marcy Captor was very much involved with getting the regions to cooperate.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman. If you could look into it, I would be appreciative, or point me in the right. I'll call her office. Talking about the Congresswoman, correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. All right, any other questions on ordinance number 471, 2024? Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 471, 2024 is approved. Ordinance number 333, 2024 by Council Members Conwell, Bishop, Hairston, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Capital Projects to issue a permit to UC City Center, LLC, to encroach into the public right-of-way of Chester Avenue by installing, using, and maintaining a parking monument sign. Okay, Director.
Mr. Chairman, so this is for a mixed-use development that's been under construction for a few years. It's between Stokes and Chester, Stokes and between Chester and Euclid Avenue. And this is for a monument sign for their new parking facility that's been open. It would be just west of where the garage entrance is. And visibility is limited due to a substation that's there for, I believe, for First Energy. And so it kind of blocks views of the garage. So they're trying to highlight where folks can go so they don't have to go around the block and come back.
Okay, Director, do you have you gotten the blessing of Councilman Conwell?
Yes, Mr. Switowski spoke to Councilman Conwell personally, and he agrees with moving forward.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions on ordinance 333? All right. Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 333 is approved. I hereby adjourn this meeting of MSP to the next call of the chair. Councilwoman, I told you to put a pin in that. Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Chair. I wanted to understand we got a great boon last year in many of our wards, continued into this year, of ARPA Back to Basic streets being repaved. I'm very glad that we've all gotten many of these done in our ward. What I want to understand is whether the tree damage sidewalk program will follow ARPA Back to Basic streets in the same way that the tree damage sidewalk program follows residential repaving streets a few years after those are done. Through the chair.
Through the chair of the councilwoman. So the short answer is no, but let me give a little bit of detail here. So currently, I think council is really aware that we have a tremendous backlog in our tree damage sidewalk program. And the way that we're addressing that was, thankfully, some money came to us through the end of the year budget reallocation, and then additional money is anticipated through the capital bond expenditure, so that we're going to go out to bid for all of the backlog that we have for the tree damage sidewalk program as a capital project, not through a requirements contract, which should give certainty to the folks bidding on it, and therefore should give us a better price. And our hope is that through that we can catch up. Once we catch up, we can think about how we should address streets like this brick streets, concrete streets, things that are not currently included in the program. But currently, we really have to catch up on what we're obligated to do before we can think about adding additional streets into the program. So we just went through and surveyed all of the tree damage sidewalk locations up through the end of, through last year, through the residential resurfacing of 2023. So 2024 and forward would be through the regular program, and anything 23 and before would be through the recovery program.
Okay. And is it your goal to make sure that eventually those sidewalks from ARPA back to basic streets are redone, or are those essentially sort of going to fall, not to use too much of a metaphor, but fall through the cracks? Through the chair.
Through the chair of the councilwoman, it is my hope to include them, but I think we have to see how this recovery program actually works in reality.
Okay.
If the costs for the recovery program come in the same as doing the work through the requirements contract, it's going to take us many years to catch up. If the costs come in lower, then we're going to be able to catch up either in one slug or two slugs. It really depends if we're successful with this idea or not.
Okay, all right, thank you for helping me understand it. I think for our colleagues, just a note that your ARPA back to basic streets are not getting their sidewalks done under the tree damage sidewalk program.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, Councilman Brian Casey.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, how did we get so far behind?
Mr. Chairman, the councilman, there's a lot of reasons why we fell behind. Rick can probably go on for 10 minutes about it, but bottom line is that we had one contractor who basically we had to we basically had to award the contract to somebody else, which that's one reason why we got behind. And the second reason is that the costs for construction and concrete in our current requirements contract increased exponentially from previous years. So Rick can give you Bible and verse. That's the general gist of it.
We'll take the general gist.
Okay.
But Mr. Chairman, to the director, then how many years behind are we? What year are we working on for repaved streets for tree damage sidewalks?
So generally, it goes back to 2020, but there are some streets from previous years, previous to that, that are also outstanding.
So there's some streets that are 6-7 years done that haven't got the TDS done yet?
Generally, it's 2020 to 2023, but there are a few, yes, that could be older. How many years out? I don't have that right on top of me.
All right, so we're looking at anywhere from, we'll do those one-offs, right? But we're looking to be anywhere from 1 to 4 years behind.
Correct.
Thank you. Well, then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, why have it?
Why haven't?
Yeah.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Why have the tree damage sidewalk? I remember when we put this in place, right? It was supposed to be, while the street's being done, the sidewalks are being done, or at worst case scenario, 1 year later, they would come back. So essentially, why don't we just morph our tree damage sidewalk money into our 50-50 program and just call it a day on the tree damage sidewalk? Because what's the sense of having it if we're this far behind? And we're doing streets every year, right? And we can't keep up with the tree damage sidewalks. So what's the sense of having the program?
So through the chairman and the councilman, very good questions. Essentially, it puts the financial burden on the city if it's a TDS program versus a 50-50 that's split between the city and the property owner. A lot of property owners do complain that trees shouldn't be their responsibility. So this was a way that we could at least acknowledge that it's a burden on property owners. And if we do the rest of the street, we really look at a complete and green street aspect of doing everything, whether it's, clearing out the catch basins, to trimming the trees, to, like this program, fixing the sidewalks that are lifted by the trees. We've definitely tried, last time we did the requirements contract, we tried to solve the problem by putting out 2 requirements contracts for the tree damage sidewalk program, one for the east, one for the west. Turns out that didn't help at all in catching up. So this year, our plan is to put it out as a capital project. I think that's going to be successful, but we have to see, once we put it out, how the bids come in.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to the director, it's definitely something we need to take a look at, maybe a universal revamp of our sidewalk. If we have money to do tree damage, right, but a street that hasn't been repaved, we have that same situation. We want to put that burden on the homeowner, but if that street was redone, the burden comes part of the city. I think we just need to take a better look and maybe a deeper dive into how we're handling our tree damaged sidewalks, be it the homeowners, the cities. I mean, if I live on First Street and it gets repaved and I have a tree damaged sidewalk, right, it's going to get done by the city. But if I live on Second Street and Second Street's not done, but I have a tree damaged sidewalk, as a homeowner, I'm responsible for it, but yet the individual on First Street's not. So I really think that we need to just take a better look, maybe a deeper dive, and try to come up with something else in regards to tree damaged sidewalks. And I'd be more than willing to work with you on that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Director.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. Councilman Jones, you want to wrap us up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Appreciate the chair. To the director, you know, where you give praise where praise is due. I really appreciate working with your administration. It's a night and day difference from in the past. When we have issues, we're able to get them resolved, or at least get an idea of what it might be able to take to resolve some of those issues. We were talking here earlier with Director Frank Williams' department about Kinsman Avenue. When we did Kinsman Avenue back in the earlier part of 2000s, they designed the street to have these brick pavers in them. And we have a number, you know, the city hasn't unfortunately been able to maintain Kinsman Avenue, but it looks really not so well. If we could look at ways and means to getting trees in there and fixing some of those pavers, it would be appreciative. I had an earful when I went to one of the meetings about just the way it looks, but I do want to say I appreciate the work that you've done. You've inherited a lot of work that needs to be done throughout the city of Cleveland. And when I started office back in 2018, I came down here. We were only allocating $4 million to doing street resurfacing. And I argued with then President Kevin Kelly and the mayor at the time that we need to increase that to at least 12 to 15 million and get to a point where we're putting $20 million into our street programs. And for us, I think the people I represent in the Lee Harvard area, at that time we were dodging chuck holes and falling in third world countries. So it is great to see, Mr. Chairman, to the director, that there has been a marked improvement in our streets programming in the city of Cleveland, thanks to the investment of the previous administration and the continual investment from this administration. Our street resurfacing is really critical to continue to invest in that, and we need to be investing in it at least $20 million a year. It would be nice if we can get some ARPA funds for next year to really continue what we started last year in terms of street maintenance. I think that that's the first priority. The second priority and the third priority is, first, let's get our streets done. We've got our streets cleaned and clear and renewed. It helps to make a difference in the atmosphere in the community, especially when you look at the southeast side. The city of Cleveland has, unfortunately, have been in some areas before we started that investment here, just looked horrible. So I'm appreciative to the work you do. I appreciate Mr. Swistowski for what he does and the work you guys put in trying to make $1 out of 15 cents and stretch the resources so that we could try to touch as many people as possible. So, Mr. Chairman, see, I was nice to Mr. DeRosa. So I don't want the administration or anyone to think that I'm beating you up. I'm only dealing with the issues that the citizens give me on a daily basis. And if I'm getting it, then you're going to get it too. And so at the end of the day, I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate your department and the work it does. And I also want to do a shout out to Randy Scott. He does a great job in his department in terms of doing resurfacing and side resurfacing. And it's good, Mr. Chairman, to see that the department is looking to expand and they've gotten serious about doing in-house work, and to see that we went past 50% of the work and we're looking to try to take over the whole package certainly is a yeoman's job, and I appreciate that entire system that's being put in place right now. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, if the Commissioner Director has anything to say to that, if he doesn't, I appreciate the work you do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. I hereby adjourn the Municipal Services and Property Committee to the next call of the chair.